Hello there, Comic Clan, and welcome to Comics in the Cross, the greatest YouTubers you've never heard of. And we are back with Let's Talk Comics. And as you can see, I've got two very special guests with me today. First of all, a welcome back to Joey Esposito, who you guys may have remembered being here when we were talking about The Pedestrian. I'll put the link for that up in the corner so you can go and check out that interview if you feel so. But we are joined by a brand new guest as well, his new partner in crime for his latest project, Andrea Schiavone. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Joey, welcome back. It's great to have you guys here. And thank you for coming on. And thank you for reaching out to Comics in the Cross with your latest project.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. You know, last time I was here, we had a great convo, and this one also going to be a great convo in a totally different way. I think it's a very different book, but we're happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
This is actually my first time on, so really thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a
Andrea,
pleasure to.
Is this your first interview podcast situation?
It's actually my first podcast ever, so yeah.
Wow. Well,
I'm actually a bit terrified by it all, but yeah, I'm pretty new to it. But yeah,
Comics in the Cross exclusive.
Well, I feel absolutely privileged. I didn't realize we were your first podcast that you'd done for this, so I feel absolutely privileged, and thank you as well for working out time to come in and actually sit down with us. Because Andrea, you're in a completely different time zone from us, and trying to get your scheduling sorted was.
Yeah, I'm actually from the future. Really, I'm 6 hours from the future, so you know.
Yeah, it's like you're.
That was tricky to figure out, but yeah, come on.
It's fine. I'm originally from Scotland. I am constantly working out the time difference between here and there, so it's like, yeah, I'm used to it at this point. So it's like, yeah, can we meet up earlier in the day? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Which
no problem.
Yeah, I'd rather do that. My usual time when the kids go to bed is like 8:30, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that to him. That's like 3:30 in the morning for him. Like, we're not going to force him into that situation. But Joey, you reached out to me just a few days ago as well. Like, you've reached out with this project, so I thank you both for coming on in such short notice to talk about the book. But
we're ready to do it.
You sent me the copies of Shitkickers number 1 and 2 to check out, which absolutely blasted through them. Absolutely great comics. Enjoyed them thoroughly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But for people who don't know, which, you know, it's a smaller company, it's, as you said in your email, it's coming from your own kind of self-publishing through Zoop. Was it Dad Soup Comics is the publishing title that you're utilizing, which I absolutely love?
Soup Dad Comics.
Soup Dad, that's it.
That I've had for, I think the first thing that I put out under Soup Dad was actually Sean Von Gorman and I's first book, Pawn Shop, which we kickstarted way back in 2012. And when we self-published it, I put it under Soup Dad Comics, which is just, it's an inside joke between my best friends and I. It's not going to be funny if I try to explain it. So that's just what it's called. And then eventually Pawn Shop got picked up by Z2 Comics, and you know, anything that I've released sort of through a crowdfunding campaign has gone under Soup Dad. But Shitkickers is like a rebrand and the relaunch of Soup Dad with the new design, and our my good friend Benjamin Bailey designed our logo, and Carlos Mangual designed the covers for Shitkickers, and just like really put together a cool look that looks, I don't know, it just looks like it belongs on the shelf, and so that's what we're trying to do. And Soup Dad in general is just kind of about making cool shit with your friends, which I talked a lot about when we were promoting The Pedestrian. That it's just, there's nothing better than working closely with your collaborator and coming up with fun ideas that you then execute within the world of your book. And I think Shitkickers is exactly that. Andrea mentioned, you know, I came to him with this idea, but since we started working together, it's really been collaborative. I think he enjoys drawing my scripts, and but then, you know, he'll include little details or flourishes in his art that then spawns other ideas. And so like the version of Shitkickers that exists is not the same version as it would have been without Andrea aboard, and for the better.
Absolutely. And how did that partnership come about then? Because Andrea, you've not got that many kind of like titles to your name and stuff. How did the partnership spawn? What made you go to Andrea with this book? And Andrea, what made you want to come on board and say, yeah, absolutely, I'm more than happy to draw that?
Well, it's a fun story because as with most love stories, we actually met online, which is exactly true. I think Joey had an open call on Twitter. So a common friend actually linked it to me. And I was like, oh, cool, let's try that. Let's try and see what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, it was for a totally different book, cosmic horror kind of book, which Joey didn't think I was maybe a good fit for. And I was a bit disheartened at first. But then he actually proposed working on Shitkickers. And just by the logline, I was hooked. He presented it as Starship Troopers meets Green Lantern, which I'm a big fan of. And I was just sold on it just from the get-go. Sure, I wasn't ready for the way the book actually evolved and what it would actually turn into, because at first I just thought, okay, cool, a new book to pitch. But at the same time, the more we got to talk, the more we actually became friends and we started really working on it together, the more it actually took shape to the point where it's actually even evolved, I think, between issue 1 and 5. Now we're working on 6. So it's actually been kind of a journey for me as an artist, I think for both our partnership, for me and Joy together. And yeah, even my approach, maybe the idea behind it, sort of came into focus a bit more as we worked, and we really, really became sillier maybe as the pages went by.
No, that's absolutely awesome. That's pretty phenomenal though that you kind of just connected online. And Joey was, what about his art style made you want to go back to him? Because obviously, like he said, his first kind of thing that he sent to you was for like a cosmic horror kind of story, and you felt the artwork didn't totally fit for that. But what was it that made you kind of think, you know what, he'd be perfect for Shitkickers?
I know that anything that I say is gonna make Andrea mad and think that he's his own harshest critic. So anytime I offer him compliments, he's just like, "Oh, shut up." But you're in a public forum now, and you have to listen to me. So you can't hang up. So just immediately, I was just the simplicity of his lines, but able to express so much emotion and movement in each individual panel. Just like really, just in the samples he gave me were great, but in Shitkicker specifically, especially as the book goes on, especially as he and our colorist Sabrina like find their groove, it just brings the work to life in a way that I hadn't even imagined. It's just so fun and so vibrant. And he's just he's a fantastic cartoonist, fantastic storyteller, and as you'll see in Shitkickers, also a meticulous designer of the technology of the world. And Shitkickers isn't a book that's too obsessed with its own sort of aesthetic, or it's not a Star Trek situation where everything sort of has a purpose and is like kind of based on, it's just kind of whatever we think looks cool. But that being said, he does, and I know this for a fact, he does like deeply consider the logistics of how things move in space, or the logistics of how a suit would work on an alien character and all those sort of things. So just his attention to detail,
Where
but
each
able,
door is.
yeah. Um,
That too, don't forget about that.
It's just the attention to detail that he gives, but then is able to distill it down into these really incredible. I don't want to say simplistic because they're very complicated and detailed, but they're very clean is what the word I'm looking for. And I keep saying it to everyone who will listen, but Andrea is like a future superstar for sure.
I would honestly, I know he's going to probably hate it from me if he hates it from you. But yeah, the artwork in it is absolutely phenomenal. There's this great old school feel to the comic, because obviously there's the kind of like the Starship Trooper propaganda comics in it, little pages of like, this is why you should join, the company, and this is how good we are, and we are heroes around the world, which absolutely feel like old school comics. Even like the color scheme of it has that kind of almost sepia tone to it, and it's look like old school. But I love the fact that that almost continues, like when it comes back to Dax and Skiz in the current, the present day. The artwork you can see has changed underneath, but the colouring stays the same, and it really helps this really cool kind of transition of it. Gives it an old school feel while having a modern sci-fi aesthetic to it. It's a very uniquely drawn comic. It's a very unique, like, I don't know anything that's on the shelf right now that looks like Shitkickers. Like, and I mean that in the best way possible. There's really not another comic I can think of that's got that same aesthetic. And it's definitely something that helps it stand out.
That's probably why we're self-publishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because honestly, it's one of those things of like, it's going to end up being at the very least a cult hit, I think, because of that. Because, yeah, the big publishers probably won't want it because it doesn't look like the other comics. But then you find this fan base that will go, no, that's why I want it, because it's not like anything else that's out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honestly, self-publishing. I'm sorry, Joey.
No, go ahead.
I mean, self-publishing actually gave us this sort of freedom to experiment with it, really. So even stylistically, I was referring before to a sort of evolution for me, and that wouldn't be possible if we were doing this for a major publisher, because a constant style would have been the first thing they ask for. Whereas here, I was actually able to experiment a little bit to really get more comfortable into my own skin and with my own stylistic choices to a degree I don't think I would ever get with a publisher again. So yeah, self-publishing probably was the smartest idea and the smartest choice we ever made for this. And in big part, it's for the end result, the style that we ended up with is probably a result of this. Also, shout out again to your colorist Sabrina for what you were referring before.
Yes.
The switch between the old Silver Age kind of pages and the more modern, more current time pages. I think that's all on Sabrina, our colorist. She was very extremely meticulous about her research. She really went into old school comics. She basically ransacked her own father's library of old comics and old Marvel reprints just to get it right, just to look at how colors were applied, even the offset colors on line art. So there are pages and panels which I would think, okay, this would be so cool to see it colored the current way, but then I see, flat colors all over, colors in offset, and I'm like, I guess that's cool too.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. And yeah, that switch specifically, it's all on her. She really sold it the way I couldn't really with just line art.
I think, yeah, she definitely deserves some praise for that, because like literally the color scheme for it, like that sepia tone, like to it, that was a flashback for me. Like, I remember being a kid and finding old comics and picking up old comics, and you could tell they've not been taken care of and they've degraded, and they've got that yellow tone through them, what used to be white like 20 years ago, that's no longer like that. But yet you still love it, and it still has this really cool aesthetic to it and really cool look to it, and she definitely captured that. But I honestly think the two of you, like, that's one of the things I love about comic books. Comic books are, you can't solo a comic book. Not unless you're like unbelievably super talented and you can just do everything. Like, it's not one of those things. It's a collaborative project, and the collaboration of your artwork with her coloring is just phenomenal. Like, both of you done an amazing job on this. You really did.
I've told this to them that I don't like you said, I don't think there's anything that looks like this book.
No.
And that's not on me. I think, like, story wise, million like kind of Green Lantern adjacent stories, but I think what makes Shitkickers unique is Dre and Sabrina and Lucas Gattoni, our letterer, also
Yes.
like does his own sort of thing. Everyone's just sort of like bringing something unique to the table, and visually it makes the book really striking. I think I'm very, very proud of it.
Well, Joey, it was your concept that you came to Andrea with it, and it was your concept. How much did you influence, or how much did you point out stuff for the artwork, or did you just give it over to all the artists in the team and say, hey, free reign, do what you need to do with it? Or
I think like I had general descriptions of characters and things like that, but like for Dylan, I think the only descriptor was like he's never heard a guitar without distortion, which isn't really a physical description, but I feel like you get a sense of like who he is as a character and a person. And then Skiz was just like a sloth-like creature, and then of course Andrea took it further, and as you'll see as the series goes on, maybe she has some other sort of origins behind her. So like, there's also that sort of layer to consider,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I mean, Andrea could probably speak better to how much direction I gave because I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Well, no, it's pretty much as you summarized. I mean, description for characters were a little bit in detail than you remember, actually. So the original document that I got went a little bit into the background of the characters as well, and that, of course,
Mm.
informs my choices when designing them.
Mhm.
So from the get-go, I knew that Dylan had to believe himself a military type or some sort of futuristic soldier, this super cop of sorts, but is just a kid. He is probably in his late teens. He's not really the smartest tool in the shed. And from there, I just made a series of choices to make him the most unkept, the most loud, and the most gangly kind of soldier you could imagine. Not really the soldier type. Skis was a bit harder to actually get right, especially in the first issues when I was just trying to figure out both her and the overall look for the book. But yeah, there were a couple of choices that were sort of cemented into the idea for the comic. There are some mysteries behind the origins that played a big part into our design and the design of some characters that people are gonna meet maybe. And I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, there are dice in there, and that of course played a part into designing skills as well. As for the word, no, that's the most generic part, I believe. So we knew that the crowd skipper, their ship had to be the suckiest ship in the galaxy, really. Even worse for wear than the Millennium Falcon in the original trilogy. So okay, I can work with that. And the precinct, for example, the main location for issue one, well, that had to be a city planet. And I just went to town with it. I just infused it with my love for brutalist architecture and old school miniature work in movies. So it's all built up like if I were building a ship actually with spare parts for the most part, or even cityscapes and skyscrapers and all. So that's really the main idea and the main uh, rules that I gave myself for it.
That's really cool though
I
that you
think
kind
that
of give you a world to work in with that stuff. That's really awesome.
I
Yeah,
also think what you captured so well is, you know, in the original Star Wars trilogy, it's all like lived in and everything's like kind of seems a little bit dumpy, but
Hmm.
also like I always had a hard time when they reveal the Millennium Falcon and Luke's like, "What a hunk of junk." I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's awesome. That looks so cool." And I don't think that is the case in Shitkickers, where you see the Crud Skipper and it's just like a big boxy ugly piece of shit, you know. And I love that feeling of, especially juxtaposed with the propaganda comics that we see, where everything's kind of pristine and nice and cool looking and futuristic, like the way that the future looked in the 1950s. And
Yeah.
then the reality is just like everything's graffitied and falling apart,
Oh yeah,
and
it's like
maintenance.
it's like 1950s idea of like what the future's going to look like clashes with like the 1980s what the future became sort of thing, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
this like
exactly.
grungy put together graffitied everything's made out of spare parts and barely flies, you know. It's like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
more in line with what would have happened, but we still have this ideal of what we wanted it to be, and I'm like, it's a really cool world to see.
yeah, I love it.
Hey there, Comic Clan. Did you know that Comics in the Cross are also on Patreon as well? For as little as just $2 a month, you can get access to all of our content from YouTube early before it drops here. That includes reviews for our comic books, tabletop gaming and video game channels, as well as the Indie Comic Book Club and our Let's Talk Comic interview show. Also, there is exclusive content available just to our Patreon subscribers. That includes watch-alongs, interviews, and a lot of behind-the-scenes information and goings-on in Comics in the Cross. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in checking out, then please go and check out the link for patreon.com/comicsinthecross. And if you do choose to support us and partner with us, then we are super grateful for that. And thank you so much for your kind and generous support. But for now, that's all from me. Let's head on back into your video. Alright, Joey, to jump into the story side of things, before we fully get into the story and stuff, because I want to talk openly about issue 1, because issue 1's out, this is issue 2 that we're plugging for, so there's a chance to build that up a little. First of all, the big question. Why is it called Shitkickers? Of all the names for a book, you went with Shitkickers.
I mean, you won't forget it, right?
No, absolutely.
So that's reason number 1. Actually, that's the main reason. It's a good title.
That's amazing.
That's really
you know what? That's like the perfect answer as well. I'm like, and that's fine. It's like, yeah, you'll never forget it, and it kind of fits. Like,
yeah, you know, I mean, I think it ties in with the characters and their role in the Cosmic Protection Bureau, which we shorten as the CPB. But they're just kind of like, maybe this hasn't always been the case, but where we find them in issue 1 is they're organizing files in the bowels of the precinct, which are, you know, it's a 30-minute elevator ride or whatever down into the pit of the planet. There's just like intestines and squid tentacles down there. It's just like a huge mess, and that's just where they spend their days, organizing files from what we assume to be millions of years of cases and history from the entire galaxy. So they're just like the lowest officers on the totem pole, and they're just real shit kickers, you know? So that's what we named it, but mostly just because I thought it was a good title.
Yeah. And it is, like, I mean, it does what it says in the tin. It's like, it just, when you hear Shitkickers, like, you get an idea of who these characters are meant to be, and the name sticks out to you. Like, it's one of those comics, like, if I see it on a shelf, like, I guarantee that's the name that's going to stick with me out of anything else that's on the shelf, just because of the name and how out there it is.
Thank you.
It's perfectly done.
I love being described as out there, and that sounds like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm not.
No, I think it's great. I think, you know, this is why we do the indie comic stuff. This is why we love focusing on that stuff, because it's like, you bump into stuff like this, but it's like, yeah, this isn't your run-of-the-mill typical comic. This is something that's completely different, and it's absolutely awesome.
I really appreciate that.
And in the story for this as well, you don't, like, hold back, you jump straight in, because you talk about how they're, like, the down and out, they're down at the bottom of, like, the whole facility. There's 30-minute elevator ride down, stuck in the massive filing room. But our kind of, like, protagonist is Dax, and he gets sent down there because of yet another issue on the job where he shoots someone in the dick, essentially. And it's the last straw. Where it's like, yeah, you're going to the filing room. You've been taken out of the field forever. Just go down to the filing room. And
which, like, also I think begs the question of how many dicks has he blasted before he.
It's like, how many times has he done this? You know, like, because, like, how many warnings has this guy had for this or stuff like it?
Right, and I think that's kind of the idea behind this, is that I think there is, like, a more serious element of, like, what we're satirizing here in terms of, like, you know, who protects the citizens from law enforcement sort of idea. And, like, that abuse of power and all those things. But obviously it's done in a very, very, very stupid, like, really over the top stoner comedy kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I love that dynamic. And honestly, I'm always worried when something comes out, but I was in my head about whether or not that would play as well as I hoped it would.
Yeah, I mean,
People seem to be enjoying it so far, so I'm not
for
really
Dax and the way
concerned.
his character comes across for that, the way that I took it and the way that it came across to me is like he's this kind of like Andrea said, he's this kid. He's like a late teens, early 20s. Father was part of the CPB. He's basically grown up in this world, and he's this like got this idealistic hero mentality of like what this is meant to be, and you know, it's like the mix of seeing his dad being the hero, mixed along with the idea of we all had of being a hero like that at some point, of I'm going to be the outlaw that's going to go out there and literally kick ass and do all this, clashing with a bit of the bureaucracy of like we can't just go and do that. But yeah, so it was like Dax being this kind of like plucky teenager that wants to be the hero and thinks I can just go and blast people, and meeting the bureaucracy of the world where it's like we can't just do that sort of stuff. There's rules and there's regulations, and that's not how we do this job, you know. At least that's the way it came across to me.
Like,
and
it's not how we do this job, but also we're gonna let you do it like 6 or 7 times before we say anything about it.
It's like we just need to give him a slap on the wrist, and we'll give him a warning and he'll be okay. And it's like, you know, if you do this 5 or 6 more times, I'm going to get mad, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, at least, you know, in the States, that's often how unfortunately police departments often work, is people are making lethal mistakes and ruining lives, and they just kind of very rarely get like actual consequences.
Yeah.
And so putting that into like a more galactic context, I thought was interesting. But also doing it in a way that's like a Lethal Weapon buddy comedy with two, you know, one sort of idealistic teenager essentially, and one grizzled old asshole veteran
who I absolutely
just, like,
love. I love Skiz. She's amazing.
She's awesome.
I love the fact that he
I
hasn't even come off the elevator and she's already over him. She's like, I am over this situation. Like, before he's even walked out of the elevator and started causing chaos down there. It was like, I'm done. No.
Yeah. I feel like it could have been literally anybody and she would have had the same kind of reaction. Like, she doesn't strike me as a people person.
No, like she's a sort of person like I want to be down here because there's less people down here. I'm quite happy being down here.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I love that we meet Skiz. We get to kind of meet the grizzled, like you said, the grizzled asshole veteran who's clearly been through stuff, who's clearly been through the rigors of this, and it's kind of like this is the latter part of their career, and kind of like I'm just done with everything. Getting stuck with the plucky, idealistic hero kind of kid. And in issue 1, that leads to the whole situation of him finally having to deal with his consequences of being too idealistic. Because Dax gets the idea of looking up Skiz's backstory, looking up her origins essentially, and like, you know what, I'm going to help her get closure on this, and kidnaps her. On her ship, and decides, let's go to this planet so we can get closure, and the planet's out of their jurisdiction, and all hell breaks loose. And that's where we end issue 1 essentially. Is I'm basically out of jurisdiction, getting shot at and hitting a planet that they shouldn't be anywhere near, when all Skiz wanted to do was do some filing.
Because I think crucially Dylan is idealistic and like motivated, but also completely incompetent.
Oh yeah.
You know, like he's not someone who should have a sidearm, let alone access to a cruiser or any of this information about citizens. Like, he is not equipped to handle the responsibility that this job affords him. So I think that's also very fun. And one of my favorite responses so far to the book was a comment on Global Comics, which you can read issue 1 completely free on. But someone was like, I'm sure Dylan will grow on us as the series goes on. Like, which I took to mean, yeah, this guy's really annoying, but I see what you're doing. I trust you.
Yeah, it's like
So,
he's that character like that. It's like he's a pain in the ass, but it's like he's going to be a lovable pain in the ass, and a little bit like I'm going to kind
I hope
of.
so.
The vibe I was getting, and I mean it with all the compliments in the world, was very much Star Lord vibes.
Mm-hmm.
He's
I think
like
that's
he's like
fair.
an idealistic asshole, and like who doesn't actually know what he's doing, but he's also kind of like lovable and like okay, he's going to grow on me a little bit.
He's got a little bit of charm. I think Dylan has like a lot of little brother energy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, ironically, kind of based. Maybe not in this first issue because we didn't have him yet, but we have a cat named Crouton who very much has like this little brother energy of just like kind of messing with our other cat and our dog, and just like really desperately wants someone to get on his level. You know, just wants to like do his thing, man, and he just wants a partner to do it with. And that's sort of how I see Dylan, is that like he's in this for camaraderie and like building bonds with his partners, and just sort of this like idealistic version of what being a CPB officer was sold to him as through these propaganda comics. And he's too
That's
dumb
yeah.
to like understand that like this was advertising to get you where you are, you know? So he's like taking it literally and is just like really enthusiastic about it.
No, that's
And
I think that's a perfect description of Dylan because it's like you literally see it in issue one even like he doesn't understand why nobody thinks what he's doing is the right thing, why everyone's
yeah,
clashing with him. You know, why is the captain hauling him up on shooting the guy's dick off? He clearly deserved it. I handled the situation. Why is Skiz pissed off at him? Why would she not want to go on this great adventure and get closure and do space trip? Like, why would she not want to do that? Of course she would.
yeah, exactly. You know, and he just doesn't get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think his journey is like figuring that out, you know? So I think in future issues, we'll see him sort of come to terms with the reality of his situation and the reality of what the CPB is actually represents, like in a broader scope outside of the precinct, and how other worlds maybe view them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is no, it's a high octane adventure, but also I think there is some personal growth for Dylan specifically.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think you can see it heading in that direction. I don't think it's spoilery to say in any way of like the character's clearly like that's the journey that's set ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
Um so we've kind of talked a little bit about issue one and the setup and stuff. So not giving any spoilers because obviously we want people to go and check out the Zoop link, which is down below, by the way, along with the Global Comics link I'll put down below as well. So you can go and read issue one. Like it's free. Go read it. Why aren't you reading Shitkickers number one? It's on Global Comics for free,
Totally
guys.
free.
Like you want
Zero barrier to
you don't
entry.
know if you're into this. You don't know if this sounds like it's your cup of tea. Go and grab it. Go check it out and then see like, hey, this is amazing. I'm going to go and back issue two. You know, why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
But what can people expect? So, assuming people have checked out issue one, because of course they have, uh, what can they expect in issue two? What's the pitch it to the people who are like, why should we go and back this?
Dre, do you want to take this one? Because it's just full of gorgeous stuff.
Oh, well, let's just say that if you love issue one and just how immersive the world is, actually, issue two kind of expands that a little bit. So we leave the precinct, as we everybody who's obviously read the first issue can see, and we enter into this new world and land, sort of, onto a new planet, which is full of actually the most dangerous of surprises. So you can actually expect, if you thought that explosions in issue one were big, you can just expect bigger and bigger and bigger explosions of that. And yeah, sort of new. It's like the intro for the original Star Trek series. So new world, new civilizations, and all that stuff. But is it civilization really? What kind of world have they just landed on? And what kind of dangers and allies, enemies? I don't know. We can find on that. So it's just a constant expansion of what I set up and what me and Joy set up really for issue one. and we get to delve a little bit deeper into the mystery that seems to be seeming, and a little bit deeper into this kind of larger galaxy in which this character exists, really.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect description of the world that they're landing on, because I don't think it's giving too many spoilers because it's the first couple of pages of it, but like literally this isn't a case of like they land here to go on some sort of mission. No, they are shot down and their ship is like gone within the first few pages. So like they are on this world that they cannot get off of initially, and it's like, so they have no choice but to explore this world, but to see what's out there. And yeah, they come across some stuff you might not expect. But that's as far as I'm going spoiler wise. I ain't going any deeper than that.
Yeah.
But also, like, I love that they're trapped in this world together, and Skiz is just like with the worst person she could possibly imagine in that
Yes.
situation. Who's like, I think that she would be fine just like blasting him in the dick and like leaving him and be like, I can't. You're dead weight.
I fully
you know,
expected her to just leave him behind at least 2 or 3 times
spoiler,
during.
that doesn't happen, but I think she comes close a couple of
Oh
times.
yeah, 100%. She fully considers it. She fully considers just like going without him because it'd probably be easier on her.
For sure.
But yeah, like I absolutely loved it. I've had the pleasure of getting to read Shitkickers #2, and like yeah, I'm excited for this book. And what does the future hold for Shitkickers then? Like, is obviously you've talked about you're writing ahead. You're up to like issues 5 and 6 at this point. Is this going to be like a one trade and we're done? Is this an ongoing series? Like, is there future plans? What does the future look like for this?
I mean, I think it depends on how our crowdfunding plan goes. So right now, what we're doing, because we're so far ahead, I'm wrapping up writing issue 6. I swear to God, Andrea, it's coming.
It's all right.
He's been
Seeing the
waiting.
behind the scenes here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a busy few months, and this is like, and you know, something that has been plaguing us a little bit. But yeah, so issues 1 through 5 are really done, and you know, which is a great spot to be in. And so what we're doing is crowdfunding 2 issues at a time right now. So the crowdfunding for Zoop on Zoop right now is for issues 1 and 2. And then our hope is to basically fulfill those, release issue 2 on Global Comics, and then immediately crowdfund for 3 and 4 and so on. Because I think people like periodical comics, you know, and I don't think that we could do this on, I don't think we could self-publish this on a scale where it's, you know, in comic shops and things right now, because I mean, Soup Dad is basically a one-man operation, and
Yeah.
then this book is really just put together by us and a couple of other extremely helpful folks. So assuming that this first campaign goes well and people like it, and we'll come back for 3 and 4, I'm hopeful that we can sort of parlay that into a readership that will come back for future issues. And you know, this first arc is 6 issues. Andrea and I have talked about a separate project after this, but I don't know. I think depending on the response and how we do, I would absolutely love to do more in this world, especially the way that the series ends. I think sets up some really interesting potential for future arcs. So I would be down for more if Andrea can stomach more of my novel length emails that I send sometimes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I love this series, and I'm really not ready to say goodbye to those 2 idiots that I've been drawing for the last 4 years. So really, no, absolutely, we have to do more. We've got to.
That's great.
I need it, man. I need it.
Comics in the Cross scoop.
There we go. Like, there you go. Like, well, I mean, Andrea's on for it, so like, hopefully we'll keep seeing more Shitkickers coming. It's like this is a series that I really wasn't aware of. I think you'd briefly mentioned it before, Joey, but like getting to check it out, I'm like, yeah, this is one I'm going to be keeping up with. I'm excited to see what comes in the future for Dax and Skiz. I think it's going to be a really cool storyline. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I hope you get the opportunity to keep doing it. And if not, I'm excited to see what other projects the two of you work on together, because yeah,
Big plans.
big things can only come from here.
But you know, if whatever happens with Shitkickers, I am super grateful for meeting Andrea and working with him, and Sabrina and Lucas as well. It's really been another instance, along with the pedestrian. I felt similarly about, just like, it feels like we captured something, not necessarily in the book itself. I mean, I hope I hope our relationship comes across in the book, but more so, it's like I found collaborators that I would want to work with over and over again. You know,
Absolutely.
I think that's the best takeaway that we can ask for, and just keep on trucking, whatever's next.
No, absolutely. I think Pedestrian, again, amazing comic, absolutely adored it, and you had a great partnership there. And I think you've got another one here with Shitkickers. I think you've managed to, you know, strike gold, catch lightning in the bottle twice, which is almost unheard of. Essentially, this is definitely a great indie comic that's worth checking out. And yeah, guys, if you want to go and check out Shitkickers number 1 and 2 for yourself, link for number 1, which is on Global Comics, for free. Go check it out down below, as well as the Zoop link for the campaign, which is going on right now. You can go and back Shitkickers number 1 and 2 on Zoop right at this moment. So
there's some cool stuff. Andrea designed some rad enamel pins and sticker sheets that you can get. We have Zoop exclusive variant covers from Declan Shelby and Seth DeMoose, which are awesome. I mean, you can only get those from the campaign, and a bunch of other, like, art prints and a bunch of other stuff. So definitely, please check it out and tell your friends. And if you have any friends who like stoner comedy, sci-fi action, and ripping guitar riffs, this is the book for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But thank you so much, Joey and Andrea. Thank you for coming on and talking to me about Shitkickers today. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up for today? Any other stuff to get out?
I would just plug that the Pedestrian Volume 1 trade paperback is on sale now.
Yep.
In comic shops. So please go buy that also. And don't forget, you can read Shitkickers 1 for free on Global Comics.
Absolutely. So make sure to go and check those links down below for Shitkickers on Global Comics and for Zoop. And also I'll put down a link to all of the socials for Joey and Andrea down below, so you can go and check them out on their socials and keep up to date with all the amazing work they're doing. But thank you both for coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure this morning to talk to you both. And I hope you all have an amazing day out there. Remember, it's a good week to be a geek. Take care, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.